This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you so much for tuning into the program. It's Wednesday, October the 15th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams. He's produced the program. Let's get it going. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial to get in the queue and on the air is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So let's ease into it. Toronto Blue Jay fans must be sitting on pins and needles today going into Seattle for Game 3, down 2-0. So the structure is the highest-ranked team plays 2 games at home, then you travel to play 3 on the road, and then come back to play Games 6 and 7 if necessary. So this is do or die. They're not technically out if they lose tonight, but they're out if they lose tonight. Throwing a former Cy Young winner, Shane Bieber, on the bump for the Blue Jays. Just a couple of interesting stats. Since they introduced the 2-3-2 setup in Major League Baseball postseason, 28 times the road team has won games 1 and 2 in the opposite building. 25 of those times, they've gone on to win the series. In addition to that, after the third inning, the Jays have been woeful against the Mariners. So since the third inning, in games 1 and 2, they went a total of 1 hit for 42 at-bats. Not going to get it done. All right, see Alex on the hook. Broke the glass last night. He got his first goal of the season, a day after Dawson Mercer. Of course, the pride of Bay Roberts scored 2 for the Devils. Ryan Green playing for the Blackhawks, yet to hit the score sheet. But there you go. All right, last quickie. So it was on this date 36 years ago, in 1989, the Great One became the highest ever point scorer in NHL history. So they were playing against his old team, the Oilers. He was playing for the Kings. He got an assist early in the game. The game went back and forth. The Oilers scored in the final minute of the third period to make it 4-3. The Kings pulled the goalie. Gretzky picks up a loose puck, flicks a backhand past Billy Ranford, who was the Oilers' goaltender. About 53 seconds to go, 4-4 to pass Gordie Howe. They go into overtime, and what do you know? Gretzky scores for good measure to win it for the Kings. Okay, let's get into it. So before we get into the results of last night's election, the election results show, there's going to be some thought and concern about process. You know, for the second straight election, the mail has played a role. And in this case, people did not get their voter registration cards, and consequently, that was a confusion for some. Then it came with trying to find your polling station. And then it came with something that we can do away with. First, let's make it as easy as possible for people who are eligible to vote to get a form of ID that will allow them to vote. We do need to ask for ID. I don't think that's asking a lot. And this is not about voter suppression. It's about ensuring that everyone who wants to vote, who is eligible to vote, gets a chance to vote. So between now and the next time we go to the polls, let's figure out a way for people to have, and maybe open up the identification world to your social insurance card or your MCP card with a hydro bill in hand to prove that's your address. So something to actually go a little further down the road to verify who's presented in front of the pollsters to actually cast their vote. Okay, we'll get that out of the way. So the PCs have won the right to form a majority government. I heard Tony Wakeham last night, the Premier designate, talk about the fact that all the pundits and all the population were talking Liberal majority. To be honest with you, I never heard Liberal majority out there anywhere in the political circles or the social circles that I travel in. I'm sure some people probably thought it. But does this come as any real surprise? The Tories had a good strategy. They looked at some of the seats that they thought they could flip, and consequently they flipped them. They put keen focus there, repeated visitors by senior cabinet ministers, or maybe cabinet ministers in the wings. The Premier designate himself, where they made some of the biggest announcements. So the strategists, whoever they are, and the advisors behind the scenes, they did a bang-up job. So we can get into the numbers, but the numbers are all just going to be born out of what was the strategy. In addition to focusing on key voting districts, they made it about the Liberals, because of course they did. For people who are surprised, I don't really understand the big surprise here, to be honest. Whether or not you think it's a good or bad result, I'll leave it up to you. But governments have a shelf life. And in this province, 10 years is just around the time where your best before date kicks in. So you can think the Liberals did a good or a bad job, but 10 years, 3 terms, is a lot for any sitting government. So in comes Mr. Wakeham and the PCs. The Liberals made it pretty much in full or in large part about the Memorandum of Understanding at the Upper Churchill Gull Island and the proposed partnership or expanded partnership with Hydro-Quebec and the government of Quebec. So some questions that will be asked of Mr. Wakeham, because for starters, campaigning is not easy, but when compared to governing, it is easy. And here comes the hard row to hoe. And, you know, for me, and I would hope for many people in the province, regardless if you're disappointed or pleased with last night's result, there's so much work to be done. So many things to be addressed. So many solutions yet to be sought that I wish them nothing but the best. And also, congratulations to every single candidate who ran in all 40 districts. So the Upper Churchill MOU. Mr. Wakeham has pretty much been steady in saying that he's going to pump the brakes, pause the deal, send it for an independent review. Okay, it would also be nice to hear from Mr. Wakeham and the party about what specifically they think is the problem with the MOU, and make sure that we draft the terms of reference that can really bring forward a meaningful review for public consideration. So that's going to be tricky. Then trying to find an outlet or an organization with zero conflict of interest between Hydro-Quebec, the province of Quebec, our government, Newfoundland Labrador Hydro, Newfoundland Power, also a tricky piece of business. But bring it on. You know, it's probably a self-inflicted wound not to have an independent review on the heels of signing the MOU, period. Because there was time at that point. Now, not as much. John Hogan said he wouldn't be rushed to hit the April deadline. Mr. Wakeham says he will not be rushed to meet the April deadline. Okay. And a few more comments from Mr. Wakeham on that front, because, of course, as the Premier designate, we can only lean in on some of the things we heard on the campaign trail. Quote directly from Mr. Wakeham in his victory speech. We will develop Churchill Falls. We will develop Gull Island. We will electrify Labrador. We will develop our resources with our workers for the benefits of our communities. All sounds good. But are we really in a position to develop Gull Island? Going it alone sounds like a complete disaster to me. And people don't like to hear this. But given the geography and the geographical relationship with the province of Quebec, unless something magical changes, like the so-called unicorn that is the East-West Energy Corridor, unless something changes, the only way, realistically speaking, out of Labrador is with some sort of partnership with Hydro-Quebec as the customer or the partner or whatever the case may be. That's not to insinuate we have the best possible deal struck inside the pages of the MOU, but building Gull without Hydro-Quebec, I mean, the pathway to get to market with power is an expensive and tricky one, to say the least. So, there you go. Few questions. And in addition to that, with pausing the deal, do we continue to negotiate with what's already inside the pages of the MOU, trying to highlight where additional risk may be, where we maybe be able to fatten up the benefits of this province with some sort of renegotiated stance on one risk level or another, one financial commitment or another, one equity stake or another, one more redress of market elasticity, inflation, present-day value. I mean, all of those things are going to be in play here. But let's just think down the road. And you might think, look, supposing this goes nowhere and there will be no definitive agreements, no contracts, we wait till 2041, which is a pretty popular sentiment in some corners, is if you think about what's going on in Quebec. The Parti Québécois, the opposition party, has said they're not interested in this deal. Legault and his party, the Coalition d'Avenir, they're cooked. They're done. I mean, they're looking at maybe not winning any seats. Legault is out. So regardless of your stance on it, incorporating all of these moving parts with time and what the contract looks like and what a review sounds like, then it's the concept of a referendum. He's sticking with it. I would ask if this is a binding referendum. So would the people speak, the people would be listened to, as opposed to giving some additional political guidance to the current majority in waiting PC government. So there's a lot to it. Also, to get a clear look at the fulsome nature of the financial books of the province, which is not 100% available to opposition parties, so in large part through estimates and committee meetings. They have a very, very good idea where we are. So to square the circle with additional spending, reducing taxes, which people love, reducing taxes, all the while considering debt and deficit, let's talk about it. Of course, he got the endorsement from Trades NL, which was most welcome, I would imagine, representing some 14,000 workers. Not to say that all 14,000 voted one way or the other, but bait ignored. Talking about, look, jobs are good. Jobs are good. Some, pick a percentage. 70% of the work has to be done in this province. There's also the concept of Equinor's listening. So if they think that's going to be the drop-dead conversation inside the pathway to potential final investment decision and a final benefits agreement, I wonder how that's resonating in the halls of the leadership offices at Equinor itself. So there's obviously a lot here to talk about. And of course, the pledges made on healthcare and public safety, cell phone coverage. Hopefully they will have the rebuild out in CBN at the very top of their list for all the obvious reasons. So let's break it down. 21 seats won by the PCs. And of course, there may be some recounts, but at this moment in time, that's the number. The Liberals hold on to 15, 2 NDP, and of course, Jim Dinn returning in St. John's Centre, and Sheila O'Leary breaks through in St. John's East Kitty Vitty. It does speak volumes about where the NDP is for them to be so pleased with going back with 2 seats, but I'm sure they feel a lot better with 2 than they do with 1. And then, of course, Eddie Joyce and Paul Lane back in convincing fashion as 2 independent members. Then you look at the seats that were flipped. They flipped it out in Carbonear, Trinity Bay de Verde, Central Labrador, Lab West, Humber Gross Moor, which is an interesting one. The PCs represented by Mike Gusney break through in that particular voting district, which was represented by the past 2 premiers, Fury and Ball. So that's a big seat to win. Lewisport, Twillingate, where the speaker gets upended. St. Barbara, Lanson Meadows, and Barbara breaks through representing the Tories to defeat then Minister of Health Community Services, Crystal Lynn Howell. Not so sure how big a surprise that might be. For starters, being the Minister of Health brings a lot of baggage with it. People and access to primary care and the overall strength or not of the system is a lot to take on the campaign trail. And remember, Crystal Lynn Howell also ran in St. Barbara, Lanson Meadows in the most recent general election, prior to this one, of course, and just narrowly defeated Sheila Fitzgerald. So there you go. That one's a flip. And then St. George's Humber, which is also a pretty interesting seat to have taken for the Tories. So their strategy worked, no doubt about it. And now the rubber hits the road. It's not easy to govern. It's not easy to inherit what's going on here. And was it time for change? Well, the numbers say so, even though, look, the popular vote doesn't mean anything. But the difference between the 2 parties is less than 1%. So it doesn't matter who you would cheer for. I think we can all just hope that the PCs are able to bring upon meaningful change. And let's not kid ourselves. It's not going to be an overnight fix here. And I'd be saying the exact same thing regardless of form of government. There's no easy fixes to complex situations, complex issues, complicated matters facing people right across the province. And then you look at the map. So it's kind of playing out like this right across the country, right across all the provinces. The more rural parts of the province are going blue. And, to win a majority government with 0 seats in town is also an interesting feat. So that rural-urban divide, and I hate to make it more than it is, because some of it's emotional versus realistic, but you look at the map and, well, it speaks volumes. So the Tories in and the Liberals 10 years in office, now over. All right, a couple more quickies before we get to you. How are we doing out there, David? Speaking of the rebuild in Conception Bay North, and there needs to be prime focus there, obviously. Then you look back to what happened with post-tropical storm Fiona. And this is a very specific email. I'll leave the family out of it. But they were able to get no help from their insurance company because, unbeknownst to a lot of people, sea surge, for instance, was not covered. But they did get help from the provincial government. They did get help from the Red Cross. They were able to buy another home and didn't need a mortgage. And they were waiting in the sidelines to see whether or not they would consider it their forever home. And then they did. So they called the insurance company to get the appropriate coverage. They were approved. They paid their annual fee, just to be followed up immediately by revoking the coverage, saying the fact that they had a gap in insurance. Of course they had a gap in insurance. They had nothing to insure. So the insurance companies hold a lot of power here. But, it comes across as patently unfair that you have the insurance records right in front of you. Why approve it, take an annual fee that's put on this family's credit card, to then immediately revoke the coverage, stating said gap in insurance? Something's got to give on that front. Switching gears just a little bit, but this is in the world of healthcare. You go to any doctor's office, you go to an emergency room, talk about wait times, you try to get an appointment to see your primary care physician and or nurse practitioner or LPN or whatever the case may be. Sometimes it takes a bit of time before you get an appointment. Look, there's been directive given inside the world of the public sector that no sick notes required. Not so much in the private sector. They still have the ability to demand a sick note. That really just speaks to the lack of trust between employers and employees. So if you don't and you're unable to nurture that relationship so that you trust your employees when they call in sick, you know it when you see it. If someone's off every second Friday, there's a potential problem right there with that employee and your relationship with said employee. But with the wait times at a walk-in clinic or an emergency room or in your collaborative care clinic, to have it clogged up with people who need a sick note, who are in front of people who really legitimately need to see the doctor, maybe we can stop that. Let's talk about the workplace and the relationship that employers have with their employees, as opposed to every single time you got to go get a sick note, and there's people who are actually really in dire need to see the doctor, waiting in the waiting room or waiting at home for a telephone call. I told those two listeners I'd put that out there on their behalf, and there you go. All right, a couple of quick ones before we get to you. So we see at the 11th hour, just before the trial was set to begin regarding Brea Renewables and one of their contractors, Laurenville Mechanical Contractors, both pled guilty to one similar count of failing to ensure that safe work procedures were followed. 9 counts were withdrawn by the Crown regarding Brea. 2 other charges were conditionally withdrawn associated with Laurenville Mechanical Contractors. They had formally pled not guilty, and then they accepted their guilty pleas, which were accepted by Judge Mark Pike. The trial was set to begin yesterday morning over the course of 21 days. They will return for facts and sentencing in November. The flash fire explosion ripped through that portion of the plant or the refinery on the 2nd of September of 2022. A man is dead. Right, Sean Peddle, 47 years of age from Clarenville, died 6 weeks after the explosion, and the other 7 were pretty seriously injured. It's a wonder that there's not more of these types of outcomes and charges of this nature to be laid, and now consequently guilty pleas. Remains to be seen what sentencing looks like, but we'll put it out there. And again, we're just about 1 year to the day where fire ripped through and destroyed the Driftwood Inn in Deer Lake, October the 19th of 2024. We continually are being told that the investigation's underway. I know it's not as easy as just interviewing a few people. You come up with a determination, but we're just about a year in. So, again, we haven't even heard from the owners of the Driftwood Inn. We have no earthly idea about fire suppression and fire lighting and fire alarms. If it wasn't for this one lady who smelled the smoke and started banging on doors, it might be even a more tragic tale than the fact that one American visitor is dead. So, almost 1 year to the day later, still no update on the Driftwood Inn fire, which was devastating, tragic, and could have been even worse. Last one. If you have a young child or a teen or a tween at home who, like many of them, spend a lot of time on social media, look, the stories continue to come in here. So Meta, who owns Instagram, are now talking about some more controls for the teen users, which we all know, the ability for teens to have a workaround to access what they want. So they're going to put some inability for folks you don't follow to be able to send you a direct message. They're going to not allow you to use certain search words, so maybe gore or alcohol or violence or whatever the words that they're choosing to put in. This should have been done a decade ago. I hate to say it, but it really feels like the social media platforms don't care a whole lot. Because if they did, they would have made meaningful change years ago. I hear people use the 3 in 5 young people who spend at least 3 hours a day on social media suffering from some sort of mental concern. There's no real document out there to support that, but there is plenty of information out there to support heightened risk for anxiety and depression and suicidal ideation and body shaming and up and down the line. So, it's always worth that conversation. Even my kids in their 20s, I talk to them about their social media use, not to look over their shoulder and pretend I don't trust them, because I do, but you can so easily get sucked in, and that spiral can happen in a hurry. So just that one more friendly reminder: you do what you want. You're the parents' you're the parents of the children, but it can be overwhelming, and quietly so. There might not be any of the outward tales to know that your child is struggling, but they may indeed be, especially if they spend copious amounts of time on social media platforms. We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we kick it off, let's talk about the election results. And, of course, you know me. We can talk about whatever's on your mind right after this. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's begin this morning on line number 3. Good morning, Ben. You're on the air.
Morning, Patty. How you doing this morning?
Doing okay. How about you?
Mixed feelings this morning. The Habs won. That's good news, but
yeah.
a little bit little bit worried about the state of the province. No, I don't mean to be too dramatic here. First, I want to say congratulations to all candidates for their name forward, especially what we see in light of going on what's down south. It's a good thing that we're all able to get together and have an election. So congratulations to the Progressive Conservatives. They have won the trust of people in Newfoundland and Labrador. They now hold the responsibility. And I sincerely hope they govern more collaboratively and more positively than they ran. And I'm calling in today specifically to talk about the Memorandum of Understanding and it from a youth perspective. And I am concerned about this deal, but also the state of the province going forward for many different reasons, and I can get into those. But I think the three chief issues are, one, a referendum on this deal is not a good idea for many reasons. Two, the deal is a good deal no matter who spins it. I've said it privately. I keep saying it publicly. If the MOU was put forward by a progressive conservative government, I would still be backing 110%. That rings true. I stand ready to help get this deal across the line no matter who is in the province. I'll advocate for it. And three, I think the number one thing this province needs right now is certainty. They need decisive action. We need certainty. And based on the way the PCs ran their campaign, they haven't been able to give that certainty. So I'm hoping that they govern differently than they ran.
Just a couple of questions on campaign and strategy and messaging. When a government has been in place for 10 years and have hung their hat a lot in large fashion on the MOU, it's just tailor-made strategy for the PCs, isn't it? Because change is a pretty common refrain when we talk about campaigning, whether it be at the provincial or federal level. It doesn't have the same cachet when you're talking about change after, say, one term of 4 years. But when you get to 10 years, to not to run with change as top of mind would be just kind of missing the political boat, wouldn't it?
I mean, yeah, for sure. Change is fine. Campaign for change, but make it coherent, right? Like, I feel like a lot of the promises that the PCs made are big promises that will take big money to fill. Where are they going to get that money? Why is it going to come about? And some of the promises they made just straight up didn't make sense, right, to be honest. I'm a freshly graduated engineer. I work in the industry here, and, the shipbuilding promises it's bold. I'll give them that. It's just I'm concerned about the lack of certainty. Change and certainty, in my opinion, are two different things. So we can have change, but we need certainty above all.
Can you point to a specific area regarding certainty that you think is absent here? I mean, are you talking about the MOU, or are there other areas that you think we should have a bit more focus about certainty? Because look, when you run as an opposition party, I've said this many times, not just for this election, campaigning is not easy, but when compared to governing, it is easy. Now the real difficult work happens when you get a complete, fulsome, 100% understanding of total liabilities, total financial exposure, the actual realities associated with debt and deficit and how money is spent and how revenue works. So it's easy to make promises. It's hard to actually follow through. So give me a couple of areas of certainty that you're worried about.
Absolutely. So the number one thing, again, is this memorandum of understanding. In other parts of the world, deals like this they might make us a byline on a back page of a newspaper. They are commercial deals. They are done by professionals. They are, out of sight, out of mind, done for the benefit of the people living in that jurisdiction. The fact that the PCs came in and for a long time in the campaign, we didn't know if they were for the deal, against the deal, for the MOU, against the MOU. Tony Wakeham comes out last night and is singing its praises, saying we're getting this done, we're getting this done, we're getting this done. Well, we had an opportunity to get it done with this MOU. We should get it done, and again, I hope they do get it done. Where do you stand on it? Why are you going to send it to a referendum, right? Why are you going to send it to a referendum, say you support it, at the end of the campaign, but all the way through you're trying to raise suspicions, raise doubts, and all the while, so that's uncertainty. They're talking out of both sides of their mouth in that regard, right? Businesses look at that, and especially large corporations looking to make capital investments in this province, and they go, I don't know if we want to put this money on the table because we could just get a government come in and put it to a referendum, and that screws the pooch, right? So that's number one thing is, for the longest time we didn't know if they were for or against, and we still don't know what they're going to do with it. I hope they put this deal through for so many reasons. I think it's about time we bury this hatchet with Quebec. I think it's a fair deal for both parties. I think there was a hyperfixation on the Upper Churchill asset and the price we paid for it. And I could go into why it's 6 cents per kilowatt hour, and and yada yada yada. There was a hyperfixation on it that really concerns me, and it feels like they ran. And that's what opposition has to do. They have to play to people's emotions and stuff like that. But now that they're governing, are they going to be able to make logical, reasonable, coherent decisions? And again, if the way they handled the MOU is any indicator, I think we're in trouble.
The referendum, look, people like to be told that they have a say. People like to be told that politicians are listening. But whether or not it's actually a binding referendum or not remains to be seen. I don't think I've heard a specific mention there. But look, regardless if you're thrilled with the outcome last night, let's just ask ourselves, do we all, as eligible voters, have enough information in hand, in mind, to cast an informed vote in a referendum? I think probably the majority of people, if they're being honest with themselves, would have to say no. If we're going to say that some voters might go into a polling station and just say, well, it's a Liberal deal, I hate it. It's dealing with the Quebec, I hate it. Versus as Party A and Party B, you can include some historical context in your assertions and your evaluation. But I think we're asking for an emotional referendum as opposed to one based on commercial sensitivities and commercial viability, long-term actual benefits. Now, it might not be the best deal of all time. I'm not here to say that one way or the other. But having a referendum based on emotion just sounds like probably a bad idea.
Yeah, I completely agree, right? And again, I sincerely hope that they get this deal across this line. It wouldn't be a PC win, it wouldn't be a Liberal win, it'd be a Newfoundland and Labrador win if they got this thing across. I agree. We can't have an emotional referendum on something that is just cold, brutal calculus, right? We can't do it, and we need to get past this as a province, as a people, right? If you look at the deal holistically, I'm a bit of a nerd, so I've looked at it in depth. It's a fair deal. It's reasonable to both parties. It's reasonable to Newfoundland and Labrador, and it's reasonable to Quebec. And just because it's not a binary thing, right? If we have a good deal, it doesn't mean Quebec has a bad one, and vice versa, right? I think there's been a lot of, I won't say misunderstandings, but a lot of misappropriations about what the deal stands for, right? I think the real value in this deal is in the Gull Island joint venture. Quebec is, if the MOU is passed the stands, is going to take on the financial risk. They're going to pay us a $25 billion down payment. We're going to have hiring rights on these projects, unlike what we're facing with Beta Nord. We're going to have, we maintain majority ownership in the asset. We're actually going to get paid a fair rate for our power on the Upper Churchill, which again is only one part of this asset class. The whole price they're going to pay across the entire asset is 15 cents per kilowatt hour, and the fact that the Upper Churchill rate is 6 cents per kilowatt hour. The only reason that that's so low is twofold, in my opinion. It's one, the asset's already paid off, and a lot of power rates come from debt servicing costs, and two, it has to be some sort of deal that's advantageous to both parties. 6 cents is a hell of a lot better than 0.2 cents. Sure,
but how do you square this circle? If then CEO at Hydro-Quebec, Michael Sabia, said, look, our replacement cost, if it wasn't this deal, would be between 13 and 16 cents. So people will lean in on that, and I understand why. Now, what we don't have a clear understanding of is exactly what replacement cost means, insofar as where's the generation side, is there any transmission has to be rebuilt, a lot of things that I don't necessarily have an answer to, but that's what Sabia said. Hey, this is a great deal for us because replacement costs 13 to 16 versus the numbers you just put forward. No concerns on that front, Ben?
Not particularly, right? And again, well, I'll square the circle by saying that this is an MOU and the negotiations are still ongoing, right? These prices are still subject to change pending a final agreement that has yet to be put forward that they're working on. We need to get out of the way of the professionals and let them handle it, right? Fair enough if there's concerns about it. It doesn't particularly concern me simply because across the entire asset class group, it's 15 cents per kilowatt hour, which is right smack in the middle of that 13 to 16 cent mark, right? So the real value here is in the Gull Island joint venture, which is it's a massive project. It's way bigger than Muskrat Falls. And as much as I'd like to be able to say, yep, we got this, we were able to build Muskrat Falls on our own and it went successfully, it didn't. And as a young person who wants to stay, wants to live, has set up shop in this province, I really want to stay here. And I really don't want to have to pay that debt for the rest of my life. So the fact that the down payment alone would have covered a lot of that deficit, and the fact that we were going to get $1 billion or more, that number can only go up, of of money per year that we can take to the bank year after year after year, it's a good deal. I understand that there's an emotional attachment to Churchill Falls. I get it, right? We've been screwed. We were had on that deal, 120%. But again, if it's realistically, we're not going to get more than 6. We might get an extra cent per kilowatt hour, but there's no other customer for that power besides Quebec. There just isn't. Nobody's come forward to offer a counter deal. This talk about data centers is a little bit hokey in my opinion, because it's going to be a dot-com bubble type thing where it's just, lots of hype around it and then it all dies off. There is no other customer. And I understand there's an emotional attachment to Churchill Falls. I get it. I wish it's a tragedy what that 0.2 cents did to our psyche as a province. But at the same time, we need to get past that for all of our sakes. We need to start building in this province. We can't just keep looking in the past. And I'm concerned about that.
Even though it's human nature. And it's difficult to separate things out. Whether it be mega project hangover, whether it be the boondoggle at Muskrat Falls, whether it be the relationship with Quebec since 1969, and all of a sudden they're willing to renegotiate when they need and want something, versus forcing us to take them to court at least minimum 7 times to simply reopen a contract, which they finally admitted was unfair. I mean, Legault said as much. Yeah. And, it'd also be nice if they could knock off all this nonsense about where the Labrador border is. It's been settled repeatedly. And then the thought extends down the path of when they're unwilling to acknowledge the border, which was dealt with in 1927, was dealt with in 1982, and other times, it gives people the feeling that they're still going to try to trample over that border to have even more control of other resources, whether it be in the critical minerals world, in the Labrador Trough, or otherwise. So there's a few things they could do to ease the worry mind, but they're not going to. They're standing firm on what they got, and they're making the same sales pitch over there. Hydro-Quebec and Legault's party are saying they did great. Opposition parties are saying they did terrible. So trying to separate the wheat from the chaff gets difficult enough, but when you're talking about $500 billion worth of non-binding MOU, it becomes even more so. Final thoughts to you, Ben, before I have to go.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'll offer a suggestion, and I completely agree. I'm highly suspicious of Quebec, freely admit, but I'm not blinded by hatred towards them, right? Freely offer a suggestion to the PC government to make one change. Any further deal, commercial contract negotiations we have with Hydro-Quebec are subject to them not claiming the Labrador border. Fix it. Have them agree to the 1927 Privy Council decision as a condition of signing a deal. If they need it that bad, they'll do it. I think we do have them backed into a corner, and I think, yes, Quebec's good at playing a poker face, and all that stuff. We need to keep our nerves in check because they will try to rattle us, right? And I think I don't know what the mood is in Quebec City right now, but I do worry that even if the MOU falls apart, people are going to take money off the table because they see how we treat projects like this that are, in my opinion, again, it's been my analysis, it's my kick at the cat, that this is a beneficial deal for Newfoundland and Labrador. It needs to happen. So if people from outside see us look at this deal and say, man, they don't know a good thing, that's not going to look good for this province. So I recommend them that they put, the accepting the 1927 Privy Council decision as conditions for acceptance.
Yeah, it's almost laughable, but it's meaningful inside that province. Ben, I appreciate the time.
Yeah. Thank you, Patty. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye. How much of this could have been alleviated if the very first move the day after the press conference at the Rooms was to say, we are in the process of, in the next month, selecting a company to perform this independent review, as opposed to appointees here, because they'll all just be viewed as political appointees. So do that. We might be having a very different conversation here today, and I think we're probably going to have a very different conversation right after this break regarding the MOU. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go. Line number 4. Steve, you're on the air.
How's it going, pal?
Okay, you?
Good morning. Yeah, excellent.
Terrific.
Yeah, just a couple notes there. Patty couldn't disagree probably anymore with the last caller there on the deal. I'm not sure how, you can say it was the only deal we got, and we got them backed into a corner in the same breath. But in any case, last week, heard Con calling in. Just wanted to say I was super happy to know that Danny's still living rent-free in his head as well about the deal in the Muskrat Falls and everything. about the prices that's going on, housing, food, energy, the whole thing. Bottom line there, Paddy, I think, in my opinion, is, inflation is a super big problem that we've got here in the province and in the country. What do you think?
Inflation's back to earth. Inflation's back into the Bank of Canada's crosshairs.
Yeah, but I mean, you say the price increases over the last few years. I mean, when people are calling in talking about the prices of food, housing, energy, I mean, we obviously got a issue on our hands here. CPI and PPI and these indicators don't seem to really capture, the struggles people are having out at the grocery store, don't you think?
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. I mean, God only knows, for people who listen to this show know full well I hear a lot of that. And the vast majority of it, it's like an iceberg. You only hear the tip of it on the show. The stuff off air is way more. Just a couple of questions I would have. Is like the one thing that we all share is the price of food. If you look at conservative provinces, liberal provinces, NDP governed provinces, we're all sharing very similar concerns with food and the food chain and the price of groceries and shrinkflation and the like. I'm not really sure what the feds or provincial governments of any political stripe can do a whole lot about the price of food. Do you have any ideas?
I think universal basic income is probably going to be something that we're going to eventually see, probably 5 or 6 years down the road.
Yeah, I think you might see that in like...
When I look at just to take a look at, say, the last 10 years, we've seen an 85% increase in the amount of M2 money supply. So that's like, say, if you've got 5 loonies in your pocket and you take out all 5 of them, you look at them. One of those loonies didn't exist before the year 2020. So, and to go back to the basics of economics, Milton Friedman said, there's only one cause of inflation, and that's the overprinting of money. And, that's exactly what we've got going on here, right?
It was for a period of time. There's no question. Look, I didn't receive 1 single cent of pandemic support. I didn't qualify. I just wasn't eligible. I never missed any work, so it left me out of the CERB. Business supports, I wasn't eligible once again, so I'll put that out there. But at the same time, and this is the conversation I struggled with, but I tried to entertain on the airs, how do we compare and contrast inflationary pressures and pandemic support monies going out the door with the opposite side of that coin of limited or no pandemic supports out the door? Economic recovery for bankrupted individuals and businesses might have been a longer, more difficult mountain to climb than the issue regarding inflation, which got out of hand. I mean, no one's going to make that silly argument here, or at least I'm not going to. So that's the circle I tried to square at that time.
Yeah, and I would say, but, listen, inflation and currency is meant to devalue over time. But when you're talking about an 85% increase in a 10-year window, that's just pushing the limits on it. And what you're seeing here now is we've hit a tipping point, and Danny Williams has nailed it. And, this is, we're living in a time right now where you're either an asset owner or you're not an asset owner. And, owning cash is useless. You need to own assets because assets appreciate at the level that the money supply does if you own the right assets. And this is where we're at. Like the prices, you can say this. The prices at the grocery store are not coming down. Period. And this is what we've done. We've separated society into 2 groups. We've got asset owners and non-asset owners. And to go back to your previous caller there, Muskrat Falls, like, here's some stats, and I think we confuse poor project management with, economics. Yeah, okay, let's say the project went from $6 billion to $13 billion. Well, that's the current value of it now, $14 billion. If you look at the 75-year window of energy, $36 to $40 billion of energy, the replacement cost in 75 years from now, $57 to $70 billion. So, $6 billion in overruns. But a year 2100, 75 years from now, we'll all be gone, but whoever's left here, think about the assets that they're going to own. Think about what it's going to be worth.
Yeah, but economics...
Is that something that we want to own, or is that something that we want to give away?
No, I think a 75-year window, if you talk about the appreciating value of an asset, it's a fair argument. But the reality is we have to take smaller bite-sized chunks, because if we're talking about cost of living pressures overall, which would be insurance premiums and cell phone bills and the price of groceries, and yes, the price to heat your home, the short-term pain here kind of outweighs a 50, 60, 75-year window. I mean, just look no further than the fact that between now and 2030, we actually have to come up with $3 billion just to keep my rates at 14.237 cents per kilowatt hour, and then add the distribution fees, what have you, where argument is we're paying 50 cents already. And even with the rate mitigation monies in play, it does not mean we're to see no increases. 2.25% every year between now and 30 with no plan after that. So the long-term vision and an appreciated value of an asset is only part of the conversation, wouldn't you think, Steve?
I think it is. Yeah, it is, absolutely. But I mean, if we give it away, I mean, we don't have anything to show for it. And, we're talking about $1 billion a year in revenue. I mean, for anybody who's looking at, the economics on a macro scale, we're not far off a period of hyperinflation. And, Quebec wants to sign this deal. Of course they do, because they know that the demand of energy is going to go through the roof. They know that the price of energy is going to go through the roof, and they want to lock this down. It makes sense. They want to own the asset, but for us, why are we in a hurry for? I just, for me is, Danny Williams, people can call him whatever they want, but for me, we own that asset. And to be honest, if it's not now, it will be the best asset that this province owns. He didn't give it away, and we'll be thanking him for that, down the road.
I appreciate the time and the perspective, Steve. Anything else you'd like to say? Because I've kind of lost track of the time here this morning.
No, that's good, buddy.
I appreciate you making time for the program. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, let's get another break and don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go to line number 5. Gabe, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy.
Good morning to you.
How are you?
Not too bad, thanks. How about you?
I'm good, thanks. I'd like to start by saying thanks to yourself and to all the team at the OCM for giving the public the avenue to really debate, I guess, the MOU, because government never gave the people that opportunity. And your show and Open Line certainly in the last couple of weeks gave, people the opportunity to come on, speak their mind, ask questions. You challenged them with good questions. You gave Hydro the opportunity as well, although I didn't learn anything from Miss Williams' discussion with you. I listened to it a couple of times. I was looking to learn something new, but unfortunately that didn't happen. And hats off to you. That's what I say. Hats off to yourself and VOCM.
I appreciate that. I will admit it is a complicated issue, and even just read the MOU as many times as I have, not only to formulate an opinion, but to be able to even ask questions has been a bit of a struggle, I have to admit. This might not be the best form, but it's one of the only forms that we have.
Well, it was the only form on this, Paddy. I mean, you gave Mike Wilson the opportunity for, I'd say an hour almost. And I know, people who weren't interested in the MOU probably saw that with a bit of frustration. But I think Mike and yourself did a great job of laying out many of the issues that are on people's minds. I have to say I'm not politically connected, but I'm delighted with the outcome of the election yesterday, because now I think the people of Newfoundland will be informed. And I think I'm looking to the PC party to live up their commitment to have an independent review, because I think that's what we need. The people need to be informed.
Next steps for me.
And we haven't been informed.
Yeah, I think it's incumbent on Mr. Wakeham, now the Premier designate, to actually expand his thoughts on this. Because it's one thing, and it's kind of the low-hanging fruit to say we need independent review, because that's been a very popular refrain. Now we really do need him to articulate exactly what that means to him. Like, is it a full pause in negotiations while we try to find an organization to review this deal? Is it a terms of reference that would be easily understood by the general public itself? Because if we don't have those, then we won't even be able to decipher the report that comes back as an independent review. So I think that's the logical next step for me, is what exactly are we asking, so that we can measure what the answers sound like and look like upon return.
I don't think the questions are that complicated. Really, I mean, the people want to know, are we the primary beneficiaries of the renewal of the Churchill Falls contract, the old 69 agreement? Are we the primary beneficiaries of, the development proposed for Gull Island and the expansions at Churchill Falls? Because, I mean, these are our resources, and we are the owners, and we're the majority owner of CFLCO. So, the basic question comes down to, are we being compensated fairly and reasonably for the resources that we own? And in my analysis, I come to the conclusion that we're not. But, I mean, I leave that up to some independent. I mean, I think you got, somebody there like Justice LeBlanc. He did an excellent job on the Muskrat Review. He knows these files. He'd be someone that the public has confidence in to chair a review. And then you get people that are truly independent, that have no vested interest in this game, to come and question Hydro on their oath so that we get the truth. Because I think we've been listening to a lot of spin, and that's very unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm not so sure the next steps will include the ability to subpoena people to testify under oath. LeBlanc, of course, would be a key figure if we're talking about process and transparency. For me, the analysis here is, well, I guess it's twofold. It's engineering and engineering complications, and then it's financial repercussions, because those are the two key areas here. Process is going to be always questionable when we talk about how much information is being shared. Is it accurate or not? What's the chain of command look like for the dissemination of info, which is more of a LeBlanc sweet spot than it might be for a financial institution, for instance, with experience in the energy industry.
Yeah, no, I don't think, a financial institution is the answer to this. I think, something like LeBlanc is the way to go, and, you have a committee that has the resources to hire the expertise that they need. I agree with you that it's about the financial component principally. I mean, the renewal is all about finance, is all about price, as Mike Wilson said. It's about price value. And are we getting a fair, reasonable price and value for what we own? That's a simple question to answer. And I think the answer is there. I just don't think that we've gotten the assumptions and all the details behind what Hydro has been, putting out there. They have not given us any backup to what they're saying, and that needs to come out. Because we need to know the facts.
Oh, well, no one's going to argue with that point. I mean, without the facts, we're flying blind. Flying blind has got us in a pretty significant amount of trouble over the years.
It has. And, there's a lot of discussion about Muskrat, but, Muskrat is in our past. We can't do nothing about Muskrat. This is not about Muskrat. And, Muskrat is there now, is operational. Still, I think, not fully complete, but, that's 10 years ago, the debate about that. This is a new thing now, and it's much, much bigger than Muskrat, and we need to get it right, and I think we can get it right. I don't believe this business that Quebec is running away, and this is today or never. I don't believe any of that. I think we have lots of time here in the next few years, 5 years, certainly, and Churchill Falls is not going anywhere. Its only value is only going to go up as electricity demand and price increase. So I think we have lots of time to get this right, and we need to get it right. Newfoundland needs to get this right.
That much, I think.
I just close by saying thanks to you, Patty. I think your show and your team there have done a great job to enable the public to have a voice on something that's very, very important.
And I'm glad the public takes the opportunity to join us on the air, and I appreciate your time, Gabe. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, let's get into the break. When we get back, we'll talk about some of the promises that were made on the campaign trail, joined by the Secretary-Treasurer at the FFAW, that's Jamie Baker, and then tons of time for you. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go to line number one. Say good morning to the Secretary-Treasurer at the FFAW, that's Jamie Baker. Good morning, Jamie. You're on the air.
Good morning, Mr. Daly. Quite an interesting night last night, I should think, for anybody who's a political junkie watching all the events unfold, eh?
'Twas that. The first 90 minutes, entirely predictable, but the next 90 minutes, absolutely seesaw fare.
Yeah, big time, big time. I just wanted to take an opportunity this morning on behalf of the 14,000 or so members of the FFAW, of course, to congratulate Premier Designate Tony Wakeham on a pretty significant victory last night. And, of course, we won't be sitting on our laurels very long before we're starting to ask for meetings on some of the things that were promised through the campaign. And just wanted to take an opportunity this morning to kind of remind some folks about some of the things that were promised by the incoming government so that it doesn't fall off the table, which, of course, is important for all of our members.
Sure. Where do you want to start?
Well, there's a couple of things. I mean, obviously, we find there's a lot of issues and delays with things at the Labor Relations Board, and they have committed to addressing concerns about limited capacity and the ineffectiveness in carrying out core functions. Like, you need these things to be able to move faster and be adjudicated quicker. They've committed to that, which is great. They've also committed to allocating dedicated arbitration weeks to ensure any grievances that are in the system are dealt with. I mean, we see grievances all the time stretch into years, and that's just not really an effective way of doing business when it comes to these sorts of things. Beyond that, I mean, a lot of it is about consulting with stakeholders on any policy changes and, of course, establishing processes to deal with some of the issues we've had, Patty. Like when we start talking about lockouts and these sorts of things, when these concerns are raised and they are substantial, there should be immediate investigation, and that is something that Mr. Wakeham has committed to leading up to the vote yesterday. And, of course, we've also asked for and received a commitment to establish mandatory audited provincial sales price reporting. One of the things about price negotiations is that sometimes there's information that would be required to really, put a true price in place for product that's coming out of the water so that everybody knows where it stands. And, we want fisheries policies to be reviewed and enhanced to make sure we can have that free enterprise system that we've, so long craved, that creates, the best possible scenarios for all involved through the supply chain, and hopefully get that good, valuable, solid, consistent fishery. And, of course, the last thing on our list here this morning that we wanted to remind him about was his commitment to withdraw the province's support for the NMCA on the South Coast, which is so important to so many members down that way. I would also say, too, there was just two very quick things, Patty, that were not on our list of questions that we put to the candidates and leaders. And those were one, and this is an important one, and I want a lot of people to hear about this. It's our new entrance proposal that has been on the table for the last 2 years. And this is a proposal that we're trying to recruit and retain young people in our fishery. And it's so difficult to do, and we're about to see a pretty good exodus of older harvesters. So we need to be able to engage our young people at the high school level and show them what they can have with a life in fishing. It's not what is in your history books, it's what's going to be in the future when it comes to economic development, particularly in rural areas. And another thing, Patty, is, of course, we'd love to see continued support for the Newfoundland and Labrador Fish Harvesting Safety Association. Their funding runs out this year. They've done some really important and incredible work, and we'd like to see all that continue. And I guess the big theme last night, and you've been a political follower yourself for quite a while, and as a journalist, it astounded me to see, the urban areas go Liberal while the rural areas went Tory. So I would remind Mr. Wakeham that it was indeed on the back of rural Newfoundlanders and Labradorians that he forms this majority government, and he needs to remember that when the time comes for him to make the decisions and do the things he said he was going to do, then he definitely needs to do them. So that's where we're at this morning.
Yeah, it seems like a trend across the country, to be honest with you, with rural, the way they are swinging insofar as the party that they support being Conservatives for the most part. This party, though, still retains the P in front of the C. We'll see how that applies into the future. Pick up on a couple of points you made. Pledge to have immediate investigations. Immediate investigations is only one step. What we need, and also to see or hear a commitment, is immediate resolutions. So investigate things, fine, but how many times have we seen investigations take place, the results are reported and no action is taken? So that's a baby step in investigation, is resolution. And tightening up some of the gaps or shortcomings in the system, mandatory for me. The National Marine Conservation Area that's being proposed by Parks Canada with no economic impact evaluation, they're kind of missing part of the story here. Insofar as the commercial fishery goes, because I think, Jamie, there's honestly a bit of confusion about what you can and cannot do inside a proposed conservation area. So for your members, is it simply about the type of gear? Because while fisheries can still continue inside the NMCA, it's just the type of gear they can use. Is that correct?
Well, it really depends on what the final ruling and what the final setup is for any type of an area like that. Lots of these different marine protected areas come with different measures. The trouble that we've had with this is that we have questioned them directly about every single possible fishery in that area. And a lot of the answers we got boiled down to, well, we'll worry about that in the next phase. We're only talking about feasibility right now. And for our members, that's just not good enough. We need to be able to know exactly, to the letter, word for word, what gear, what types of fisheries will be affected and how. And to this point, we entered this discussion some time ago, and all we asked for was, some clear, concise information so that we could bring it back to our members and let them decide what they wanted. We did that, and we took everything Parks Canada gave us, and we brought it to the members, and the members were very, very clear to us that they saw this as a threat. The thing about 3PS, in particular that area over there, is that they need a little bit of everything, Patty, in order to make a viable fishery. It's not like some areas where one or two species can really, save your season or make your season. That's an area that really needs a bit of everything. And as the staff rep for that area, there's like 10 or 11 different species that are caught in 3PS. And anytime you remove one, you damage the viability of your enterprise. And, I had a young guy from the Virgio area call me a while ago, getting ready to buy a fishing license, getting ready to finally become a full-fledged fisherman, as he's been working towards for the past 5 years. And he asked me unequivocally, he said, should I be doing this? Am I still going to be able to fish? And I'm like, well, it looks like you will, but the problem we have is, Patty, we're not sure exactly what you'll be able to fish or where. And then there's little things like, we've heard time and again that, DFO will continue to manage resources in that area. However, what's not been said is that DFO will have to manage the resources in that area under whatever rules are put in place. So that's our concern. For us, we've always thought the national park was a win, right? It's a huge economic driver. It doesn't take anything from anybody. It adds another kind of arrow to your quiver, and then you can still do lots of other things in one basket. That's kind of where we've been at with it on behalf of our membership in that area.
Yeah, because there's a difference between a scallop rake and a lobster pot, a gill net versus a bottom trawl. So I think that's some of the problem associated with this proposal. Is we're pretty sure we know what it means for expansion in aquaculture, but I don't think we're entirely sure what it means for the commercial fishery. So if you can't use a rake for scallops and you can use a gill net but you can't bottom trawl, then those are different things, many of which are not necessarily inshore concerns for the most part. Of course, a scallop rake and all the rest of it, of course, would be. But and I wish the confusion didn't reign supreme, because that really leads to the waters being more muddy than they need and maybe consternation that's not fully warranted, which is why Parks Canada owes us some answers here. No doubt about it.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. We need to have those answers and that clarity in order to be able to move. And you mentioned aquaculture. There's no doubt there's been a set-to between the group trying to establish an NMCA in the aquaculture sector. Our members feel like they've just been kind of caught in the crossfire here. There's been a lot of discussion about fisheries, and we certainly don't want to see our harvesters. We're on the verge of some really potentially, positive developments in that area in the years ahead, and we wouldn't want to see that hampered in any way. That's our key objective here.
One of the issues that I didn't hear much about, and I was a little bit surprised because it was the epitome of low-hanging fruit, is the processing sector. We talk about some of the requests out there for expansion in the processing sector, so overlaps between, say, for instance, snow crab and cod are more easily managed. Then you had Royal Greenland trying to buy sea cucumbers from a foreign vessel at 50 cents compared to the negotiated price of 69 cents a pound. Smaller processor said, hey, if they can do it, I'm going to do it too. The province holds all the cards when it comes to the license and licensing requirements, yet I didn't hear much about it, but that's an issue that can be expanded beyond sea cucumbers. For me, that was one of the major issues that I haven't heard a peep about.
Yeah, sea cucumber was really just a bellwether for that issue when it comes to all species. And, they have committed to looking at licensing privileges and making sure that they don't get abused. I mean, you need conditions of license in order to be able to operate a fishing boat. So the conditions of license for processors needs to be equally stringent to make sure that any benefit accrued by any fishery in this province comes to Newfoundland and Labrador first. So that's a critical component going forward to make sure we have measured up and we have laid out quite clearly going ahead. And in that way, encourage that free market, yes, at the same time be able to control how things are done on shore and make sure that the viability is there. I mean, we saw the shipping out of crab last year. I mean, that kind of thing is not acceptable either. So we're hoping to meet with the Premier Designate at his earliest convenience and lay out some of this and see if we can come up with an effective and viable plan for all hands involved.
Appreciate the time this morning, Jamie. Thank you.
Always a bit. Thank you.
My pleasure. Bye-bye. Jamie Baker, the Secretary-Treasurer at the FFAW. Let's take a break. When we get back, Dave will tell us where we're going, then we're speaking with you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 8. Good morning, Trent. You're on the air.
Patty Daly, buddy, how are you this morning?
Great today. How about you?
Good, bud. Patty, first of all, I'm calling in to talk about junior curling, but before I get into the junior curling, I just want to talk about how friggin' glad I am that this provincial election is over, because the nastiness that I've seen from people online and in the public when you talk to them and try to have a sensible conversation one-on-one like you could have back 10, 15 years ago, that them days are gone. Now, to me, politics in this province has gone too much towards the nasty side and is no longer fun to watch or follow because there's too much nastiness, too much personal attacks, and to me, that's not what politics is about.
Make politics boring again is one of my rally cries. I'm glad it's in the rearview mirror just because it's been a long 2025 with elections. There has been a lot to it. And at some point, even the most keen political watchers kind of run out of gas.
Oh, Tony, Patty, you don't have to tell me twice, man. Like, I volunteered with a buddy of mine who ran an election, and he said that the volunteers for this election were not there like they were in the past because people are just burnt out. We just came through a federal election. We just done a municipal election and then a provincial election right on top of it. People are just burnt out. And I don't know what the total percentage of the voter turnout was, but if it was low, I would not be shocked because people are just sick and tired of the constant phone calls, the constant knock at the doors. I was going to say going to the mailbox and getting flyers, but Canada Post sort of put a screw into that one for the provincial and municipal election. But I mean, people are just election burnt out, and it's time, for some stability. And my fear is, like I said, this is not why I called in, but my fear is, come November, there's going to be a federal budget brought down, and of course you got Pierre Poilievre there in the wings, just chomping at the bit to try to bring down the government again. And I guarantee you, and I said this yesterday to, I worked the provincial election yesterday, and before we got started, I said to one of my colleagues I was there, I said, mark my words, I said, before January or February of 2026, we are going to have another federal election because any chance that he can get to bring down the Carney Liberals, he's going to take a swing at it and try to hit a home run.
Well, some of that depends on exactly what the relationship between Ottawa and Quebec looks like, because the Bloc do indeed hold some power here. So, yeah, there's going to be some confidence votes, and it all depends on who's going to join forces, so to speak, with the Liberal minority parliament. Now, it's fascinating to me that we even have a conversation where federal tax dollars support a party like the Bloc Québécois, who only have Quebec in mind and even try to further separation conversation. So that has long irritated me, but that's sort of apropos of nothing.
Yeah, that pisses me off too. But anyway, like I said, that's enough of the politics. I'm sick of politics. But anyway, Patty, I called in. I want to talk about junior curling, and the first thing I want to do is I want to throw a bouquet out to VOCM, and I'll tell you the background story, the reason why. Over Thanksgiving weekend, it started at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock on a Friday. We had a junior Bonspiel tournament. It was in the name of the late Paul Harvey. So anybody that's involved with curling in St. John's should recognize the name of Paul Harvey. Paul was very instrumental in the curling club here in St. John's. His daughter and his family decided, in his memory, that they would do a Cashspiel tournament for junior curlers in his memory. So we had 13 teams take part. We had one team travel all the way across from Port aux Basques. That was Dave Thomas's team. Dave, it seems like every tournament across this province, Dave gets his teams, and that's tremendous support for curling. And we even had a team come in from Gander, and that speaks volumes too, that Gander sent a team in. I came home on Sunday after the tournament was finished, and I got on my phone and I sent the email to I went onto the VOCM website and I sent an email to the email address that was there, just stating my displeasure how there was no coverage of the curling program. And right away I got a response back, and I don't know who it is, and maybe you can tell me when I say it. He came back and said, I'm truly sorry. He said, I just checked back to my emails, he said, and I didn't see no emails or tweets about this curling program. And he signed it Madore. So I'm guessing that must be Brian Madore.
It is, yep.
Okay, so anyway, he said, send me in all your information, send me in the pictures, he said, and I will pass it along, and hopefully, we will get it covered. So I sent along all the pictures of the curling, and I sent along all the information. And yesterday morning, sure enough, when I woke up, a tear trickled down my cheek. I looked online, and sure enough, there was a story there that they posted about the junior curling program, and that means a lot. And I want to throw a bouquet out to Brian Medor, because Brian Medor took my email and he passed it off to whoever he had to pass it off to, and the story got published. And that's what we need to do. We need to make sure that curling, junior curling in this province gets more recognition than what it's getting, because it's falling. Because we focus more so on like the senior curling when it comes to the Briar and the Scotties play downs and stuff, but we don't focus on the juniors. And the juniors is where the future of this sport lies.
Yeah, let's give a couple of shout-outs there in at the Paul Harvey Memorial Curling Tournament. So in the under-18 category, Team French win on the male side, Team Blandford on the female side. Team French, they're 16 and 17 years old. They're going to Alberta this week for the under-25 Grand Slam. Every other team is going to be between the ages of 20 and 25, and they're 16 and 17 years old.
I was talking to the skip. I was talking to the skip over the weekend, and his team is ecstatic for the opportunity to go. They had to apply, and there was no guarantees that they were going to get selected. And he said when he got selected, he said they were a little bit shocked that they got to get this opportunity, because man, like they're going to this, it's like a Grand Slam, but it's for like under 25 people. And I don't know if anybody much follows curling, but there's a name on it from Scotland. His name is Craik, C-R-A-C-K, and he was here for the Grand Slam. And he's from Scotland, and he's one of the top curlers going right now. And Team French gets the opportunity to. That's who they get the chance to go up against. And this is the kind of experience that the junior curlers in this province want.
Of course, you want to play the best if you ever want to be the best. A family connection title, the mixed under 16. So Team Kennel, the skip, McKinley Kennel, the granddaughter of Paul Harvey, which is also very cool.
And that meant a lot to me too when that got posted, because my daughter played with Team Kennel over the weekend, and to see the pride on McKinley's parents and her grandmother's face when she walked off the ice, it was tremendous. Now the pride was there for all the players, but it just held a little bit more of a sentimental moment that the granddaughter won it. So that was the icing on the cake. And then at the end of the night, I don't know if you see the picture there, but then at the end of the night, my daughter and her team went out on the ice to get a group photo, and one of the older girl teams, Team Blandford, came out on the ice, and they were going to get a team picture also. And we looked over at them, and we smiled at Team Blandford, and Team Blandford knew what we wanted. And right away, we never had to ask, we never had to persuade them. They ran out on the ice with their trophy, with their medals, and they posed with the junior curlers. And to me, that meant, like my daughter looked at me, she said, Mom, that means a lot to us. She said, to see the older curlers come out, she said, and celebrate with us. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, 100%. Sports is good for the soul, man. Trent, appreciate the time, buddy. Thanks a lot.
And Patty, hopefully throughout the year, like I said, I'm going to be calling back and giving you guys a little bit more updates on the junior curling throughout the year, like different tournaments, stuff that's on the go. And hopefully, like I said, we can get some coverage and get someone down there actually to do a few interviews with the players. So, like I said, I'm going to be calling back throughout the year and keeping the whole province hopefully in the loop on junior curling.
Appreciate the time, Trent. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, it's 10:30 right on the nose. When we come back, there's a really happy camper in the queue on line number 6. Then we're going to talk about a new novel regarding a person who's neurodivergent as the lead character. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go. Line number 6. Tony, you're on the air.
Hey, Patty, how are you this morning?
Okay this morning. How about you?
I'm good. I just congratulate Tony and the party for the great job they done. And what I didn't understand is how the caller was there a while ago, or the first caller was saying about how if they didn't run the campaign, or the province any better in their campaign, we're in trouble. They want a majority government. Like, there had to be a good campaign, and what he should be done is judging the Liberals by what they done when they were in power for 10 years.
Or he can say whatever he sees fit. This is another option.
But that's what I would do. Yeah, but right now, I mean, he's judging how this is going to be, this Quebec deal, and we had to do it. No, we don't. And according to Michael Williams, this is even a worse deal than the last one they done in '69. I mean, and why didn't the Liberals release his letter or resignation when they kept it in. We don't have any. This is because we don't have any water rights. We don't have any. We're not the one in charge of hiring. They kept it all to themselves. They never released not one thing, and this is why. And the same thing. I mean, people supported the PC's government because our health care. We don't have any. We don't have any education. We don't have any. Basically, destroyed everything was in this province. They're saying where the money's going to come from. Where did the Liberals get the money when they're paying out hundreds of millions of dollars every year? I mean, one alone was costing that. Then you got the $83 million that the warehouse down there, the old warehouse, Costco, which they leased for 20 years. Give one of their friends $83 million plus. Now they're going to pay for to get it done, and they don't even for the clinics. And they don't even have the doctors or nurses to run it.
So, anything that you can point to over the last 10 years, does that mean that precludes people from asking questions about where the money's going to come from for Tory promises? Come on, Tony.
No. Well, what they should be doing is asking, where did money come from in the first place? For good. We're right now. We were at $7.3 billion in debt when the PC was in there. And the reason why, because all the business was going and tax. Now we're almost $21 billion, three times more, and we got no work, no nothing because the taxes were so high. The business had no other choice. They had to put it up the price in order to survive, which they couldn't because the people were getting taxed to death, so they couldn't afford to buy anything. So basically forced people to close, and forced people, a lot of them lost their jobs because they had to close it down, so they lost their jobs, which chain reaction, which they lost houses, they lost everything they had. These are people that were investing in this province. So I mean, when you got 175,000 people are out there without a doctor, we didn't have that problem before. We have nurses right now who is getting. I mean, you take the fly-in nurses, $244 million to pay out. It's just crazy with the money that they were wasting, and it wasn't the Newfoundlanders who was getting it. It was the other people who started getting it.
Some of them.
I mean, a lot of them missed it.
Yeah. Tony, this reminds me of a phrase I'd like to put out there. Is given the fact that your side, your preferred party, was successful in winning a majority government last night, can't you just take yes for an answer?
What do you mean, yes, for an answer? Yes.
I mean, you got what you wanted, and, the whole concept of political deflection just gets tedious for me. I can only speak for myself, is people looked at the last 10 years, and they voted based on what they thought of the last 10 years for the most part. Not everyone votes like that. Some people just simply vote for the same party year over year, time after time, for whatever reason. But if the Tories come out the other side victorious, which they have, and congratulations to Tony Wakeham and the strategy and the candidates and what they did to flip all those seats, but that doesn't mean that we cannot look at what they've promised and pledged and ask the obvious questions which we asked of the Liberal government at the exact same time over the course of 10 years. So, I don't know what...
Yes, I don't mind it one bit. But the only thing is that I'm just giving out some of the appointments that they could be putting in better places rather than wasting all this money that they wasted. That's all I'm saying. The same thing as asking questions, the same as they do. I mean, everybody got a right to their opinions, and everybody got a right to ask questions. And so they should. And this PC government went in there, and if they don't do what they say, well, then they got to raise that question and also put pressure on them to do it. I have no right now, what's best for the province, what's best for our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. So I got grandchildren. I'm hoping one day to have great-grandchildren, and I want this province a better place than it is now. I mean, we went from, and that's why I'm saying, you put pressure on everybody, no matter who's in there. You don't, to me, I should vote PC because the last time they were in there, the same thing. They took charge they took over in 2003. We were right then, we were in the same position basically we are now. We were having 2.5 years wait to get hip surgery and knee surgery. And heart surgery was even worse. When they got in, they hired all the professionals, the 168 doctors for psychologists and psychiatrists, everyone to help it out. That the point of the matter is it went down to knee surgery, just a regular routine. Now we're right back to where we were to again. We're down 2.5, 3 years for knee surgery, hip surgery. We're going back to everything. The same thing with the teachers. The teachers they laid off 244 teachers the year before they put in, when they were putting in full-day kindergarten. Then the year after it comes out, we're short of teachers. Sure, you got to be short when you lay off 244 teachers. They went from 18 to 25. They brought them down when they're in the last time before they got put out. They were down to 31 and 32 students in a classroom. And then we went down to 18 to 25. And then now we're right back to 30, 31, 30, whatever you can cram in a classroom again. And there's no way teachers can keep up with it because it's you got students there from like different things going on, and they all need attention. And you can't if you got so many there and you got so many class teachers or students in a classroom that you can't teach. But when you bring it down lower, you get them a better chance teachers got to handle it. I mean, it's just pressures on everyone. And it's like our nurses in there, they're quitting and going elsewhere because there's too much to just nonstop to get forced to make them work overtime. There's nothing you can do it if you're full time. So, I mean, the more nurses we have here, the more people are going to be investing in the problems, like in houses and cars and everything else, the more taxes going into the government, which is going to reduce the debt. And there's more money, and then you're going to start more businesses, you're going to be hiring more people, and they're also going to be investing. And that just goes on and on, like a chain reaction, the same as opposite. And the reason I criticize as well as anybody listening to your show, that's all you have to do is listen to it, and you know what's going on for the last few years of people constantly phoning in about everything that's going on. And I know out in rural areas, the places just got it. What was a hospital is now only a clinic, and what was a clinic is now closed. So, I mean, they just got no health care whatsoever. I mean, I know one person that was rushed in the hospital with a nurse in an ambulance, and they had to wait 11 hours. And they had to wait in an ambulance. And then when they got in, they had to rush in and get him to surgery right away. I mean, this is the stuff that was going on that was never, ever there before. Like, this is why I complain. And that's one Tony says they're going to do it, and I think he will, because I think he's a very passionate man for this province, and so is the people that they got in party last night. And I just hope that he's going to, and I think he will. And if not, well, then you just phone and put the pressure on him as well. Like, that's why everybody's there, to ask questions, hope for the best. That's how I look at it. And I'm sure you and other people is the same way. We just want a different change because the people, we got, first time ever I heard tell it, like we were at war with our own government. We got thousands of people dead waiting to get in and to get a doctor. Like, this is what gets me about all this. I mean, when you say it, like, it's unreal. How we got, and thousands of people. Like, this is unreal. It's like, you can shake your head at it. Like, I never heard tell that before, and what government was in there. This government was like it was a dictatorship. So, I mean, this is,
dictatorship?
Anyway. Well, I mean, they done what they like. They done what they like. I used to watch the House, and everything was there. We'll look into it. Never did. I mean, you have people there phoning about different things that are serious problems that was never taken care of, and answers that they never return calls. There's nobody never even bothered them up to 2 years. I mean, it's just a nonsense. Like, it was just out of control. And right now, I think Tony's going to bring it back, and I think he's going to do a lot of things that is going to turn these problems around once again, and hopefully for the better.
Hopefully so.
Like I said, yeah.
Well, I live here. My kids live here. My family lives here. I want things to be as best possible. But nor am I going to kid myself in that there's simple fixes to complex problems that are going to be put forward over the course of the fall. I mean, that's just not what we're talking about here. And anyone who thinks so is willfully blind to the reality on the ground. So I'm going to absolutely cross my fingers and hope that there is meaningful positive change. Why wouldn't I? I mean, I don't find myself in the same sort of hyper-partisan envelope as many people who are chiming in, and rightfully so. I'm glad they chime in via email and or here live on the program like you have this morning, Tony. Congratulations, I suppose, or do. This is what you wanted, and I'm glad you got it, and I appreciate your time this morning.
Well, that's like, and I said, like you and your family. I mean, you're investing here in this province, and that's like hopefully other people will be like it. I mean, this is, and I'm not like partisan as such. I just want the best for this province, and I support the PC because of this. But anyway, you have a great one, Paddy.
You too, Tony. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Terry Bursey's been in the queue there, talk about a new sci-fi novel. We'll get to Terry, and then Edward wants to talk about the election, specifically polling stations. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Terry, you're on the air.
How are you this morning?
Okay, how about you?
Oh, I can't complain. I suppose, like many Newfoundlanders across the province now, I'm going into things with a hopeful attitude, and especially hoping that the progressive part of Progressive Conservative includes social progress in the near future. But aside from that, I'm excited to talk about my book.
Let's do it. Where do you want to start?
Well, I'll start off, I guess, by with some thank yous. First and foremost, I meant to call in yesterday on the most available day for in the wake of Thanksgiving for that purpose, mostly in regards to this book. But I wanted to thank first and foremost my local community who have been extremely supportive of my novel, especially in towns like Gambo, Harebay, Dover. where I made the vast majority of my local sales, and I could not keep up with the demand. I'm happy to say almost that I've plateaued at this point locally. I think everyone who wanted a copy of the book now has one in their hands, and if not, there's a few more available. But I wanted to also thank Carl Wells, who's been a supporter and endorser of this work since the very beginning. And this on top of him also, of course, self-promoting for his own book, which is a fantastic read as well. I have a signed copy of that tome right here, and that, of course, is openly Carl. So it's been an incredible journey. It started out as a pet project that was admittedly rushed, and turned out to, despite a lack of supports in other areas, turned out to skyrocket, if I could make a half pun in that term, considering that the book is science fiction set on another world. But, first and foremost, this book is a Newfoundland tale. It is absolutely 100% right from flyleaf to the last word Newfoundland culture. The science fiction aspect of it is not your typical science fiction read, in that there's no space battles, there's no lasers, there's no overly complicated terms. It's essentially science fiction in terms of setting, in that it takes place roughly 200 years from now, when Newfoundland culture has pretty much become the dominant culture in society within that future, due to reasons I won't get too heavily into. I only have so much time.
Terry, before we go any further, let's give the folks some idea what we're talking about. You're intimately familiar with the book as the author. Give us some Cole's notes so that we can kind of set the stage here.
Absolutely. So Terra Nova New Earth is the name of the book, and I go by the pen name T.C. Bursey for that. And it's a science fiction book about a neurodivergent young Newfoundlander, much like myself, except I'm quite a bit older, who crash lands on an alien world 19 light years from here. And Newfoundland at this point is making an exodus away from a dying world through nuclear war and other factors. The world has been rendered completely inhospitable. Newfoundland remains one of the only outposts where there's actual human life that's not only survived but thrived. Still, they have to flee. They end up going to Terra Nova, which is the planet that they settle on 19 light years away, and they end up crash landing. And this planet is a wild new world full of alien wildlife, hidden dangers, and for people who'd lived most of their lives underground, it is absolutely mind-blowing to just about everyone. Unfortunately, due to the crash landing, there is some political division almost immediately. There's no leadership. Everybody's descending into chaos. What scant survivors are left are starting to point fingers at each other as to what went wrong. It was a mission that had gone completely off the rails, so to speak, and they're just trying to look for some kind of communitas in the wake of uncertainty. And that's when things get really bad for our main protagonist, who not only has to navigate the fact that he's on a hostile alien world, but that he's also an openly autistic, neurodivergent person who is starting to have fingers pointed at him for everything going wrong to begin with.
Yeah.
So it's a read that's not only an adventure where you're putting yourself in autistic shoes, but it's multifaceted in so many ways that I could not get into all the details in the short amount of time that I have, but I would highly encourage anybody to read it.
So let me ask you a question about the lead character, the protagonist, and take this for how it's intended. And we do know that there's, if you're on the spectrum, you're just on one spot on the spectrum. The spectrum is wide and broad. So neurodivergent people, in general terms, especially those on the spectrum, they kind of have a heightened sensitivity. They, the fear of being rejected, trauma, sensitivity overload, trying to reject some of the confrontational situations. So how does that play into the chaos as you describe?
It plays in fundamentally, and I'm actually quite impressed with your with that level of insight. I think when I wrote this book, I wrote it with neurodivergent readers in mind, not just with the formatting, with no words or sentences bleeding into the next page, but also with lived experience. And as an autistic person myself, I was very easily
that's on Terry's end. Kind of heard a couple of cell phone related clicks. Let's get him on to finish answering that question, though, if possible. Dave, thank you. Let's go to line number 2. Edward, you're on the air.
How you doing? There seems to be a weird communication issue going on here today, isn't it?
On my end? I think it's more the callers today. For the last long time, it has been my end problem. But like earlier with JB Baker, his cell phone was obviously receiving another call waiting. That was that interruption. I think Terry's cell phone just dropped that call. I didn't touch anything.
Well, I was on the line earlier, and the phone call dropped too. Something weird going on with the phone systems. God knows what it is. But anyway, in the meantime,
okay.
We went to vote yesterday. Pretty well everybody did, as far as I know. At least I thought so, until I looked at the numbers on the screen there last night, and there's like, where the heck is everybody else to? Which kind of makes me wonder, is there anybody voting? Or are the votes being even counted, which makes me very suspicious about that. In the meantime, so I went to vote yesterday, and what we did, I went and printed off the pieces of paper that was issued, like, because you didn't get a card or nothing, on the system. So I printed off these pieces of paper that was a PDF file from the website, and brought it over to elections. And they'd never seen them before. They had like no knowledge of these documentation with your address and phone number and all your ID, and a special number on the side that they had to write down when they wrote your number down and your name down after you voted. And I was finding it very weird. It's like, well, these people have no knowledge of this? They haven't seen this before? Like, are they not educated? What's going on?
They're all trained. They're given the required training. But look, we got off on the wrong foot again this election. In the last one during the pandemic, of course, we had to rely on mail-in voting, which became an absolute farce. This time, the complication of the mail system, Canada Post strike, was that people didn't get their voter cards. So then there was two-step authentication, I'll call it, and then people weren't even required to have an ID and or a matching piece of mail that, confirmed their address. So we've just got to tighten these things up.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody was asked for ID, as far as I know.
Not at my polling station. Well,
they should have been, in every sense of the word, because, I mean, when you look at it, you got to, if you claim you're going to vote and your address is correct and you're on a list, if you're on the list, then you should identify, where you're living to, no matter which way you look at it, in order to vote in the first place, which should be legal in every sense of the word, and it is legal. But to ask to not vote and not ask for ID is kind of weird, because that means that if you're not asked for ID, how do you know you're not voting in a different district again and again and again and again to get extra votes?
Yeah, I mean, how common do we realistically think that would be? It seems to me that would be a minuscule number of nuisances that would take the time to drive around from district to district to cast one vote. And now I know every vote counts, but my God, what must be wrong with somebody for that to be their mindset on election day? Even though, look, I'm with you. It should be absolutely confirmation of address and name via ID. I just believe it to be true.
Yeah, basically. So yesterday, I found it very weird that, say, these people didn't know anything about this. I know our elections in the past number of times, elections have been very, very questionable in every sense of the word. The lack of people voting, or at least listed to vote it, is highly questionable too. I found that very weird that there like 13,000 people in the Western District of St. John's, and there's like not even 4,000 people voted. I found that very, very strange.
But that's been the trend, though, Edward. I mean, that's been standard right across the country. And in this province, standard stuff. I mean, look at the turnout in the municipal elections. Oh, my God. Absolutely woeful. And I was expecting a low turnout for the provincial election as well. And I got a funny feeling, had it been a Liberal minority or majority, we'd be talking a lot more about this particular facet of elections here this morning. But I think the turnout numbers are what they are. Apathy rules the day. People have the sentiment of, well, there's no one worth voting for, or they just don't want to take the time to have to go to a polling station or find their polling station or go ahead and cast a vote. I just think that's been where we've been headed for quite a long time.
Well, getting back to the voting thing, I brought a friend of mine to the voting station here last night, and she went in, and for some reason she wasn't on the list, which didn't make any sense. She's been voting for over pretty well, she's over in 30s, and she's been voting almost her life for all elections, no matter which way you look at it. So they asked for her ID. And when they asked for ID, the person on the desk, now these, apparently according to her, the people in there didn't seem to be very nice at all, which I'm not really sure why. Maybe they were tired or exhausted or something, I don't know. But the person asked her, looked at her ID and asked her a weird question I don't think anybody would even ask anybody, which is kind of weird, because she has low self-esteem, and asked, "Do you identify as a female?" And I'm like, why would anybody even ask a question like that?
I'm not buying that.
No, that's exactly what she said. They asked,
I'm not buying that.
"Do you identify as a female?" And I'm like, why the hell would anybody ask a question like that? And she came out and she was literally crying. She was absolutely astoundingly crying. It was like, why would anybody even ask that in an election voting office in the West End of St. John's? I don't know. But somebody physically asked her that, and she was devastated. Absolutely devastated. Why would anybody ask anybody that?
Yeah. It's unfortunate if someone was devastated by a question that I don't know if was asked or not, and plus it doesn't belong in the conversation. It's name, address, here's your ballot, good luck, goodbye. That's the conversation you have at the polling station. Edward, before I get to the news, anything else very quickly, because it's 11:02.
Oh, terribly sorry.
No worries.
Not at the moment, but I do find in the past lately that there has been a problem with communication systems all over the place with the phone systems. So I don't know if the phone companies are having a lot of issues with their systems, because I know it took an awful long time to get hold of you, because I had to go through your main line instead of the open line, because I couldn't get through you guys at all.
Well, I'm glad you finally did. I appreciate your time. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, let's get a break for the news. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the show. Let's rejoin author Terry Bursey on 3 to get final thoughts. Terry, you're back on the air.
Hi, thank you so much. I actually appreciated that little break. I was about to hit a mental wall in regards of my ability to speak. So it turned out for the better.
Welcome back. I'll just set the stage one more time. The lead character, the protagonist, is on the autism spectrum. And my question was, how can someone who's neurodivergent and conflict averse navigate the chaotic world you described?
One step at a time. He's very much, Daxton Blackwood, the main character, he's very much a person who takes things in stride. He doesn't allow his limitations to immediately interfere in his goals. And so he follows protocol, something that was established by the culture in which that he's in it's almost a military type, almost Starfleet-esque culture where there's a protocol for things. There's a rank that is clear cut, which is something that he's navigated his whole life. There's always been some kind of direction that he could follow amidst chaos, and especially when it comes to a lot of neurodivergent people, such as myself, falling back on these natural routines or these same sort of bedrock that guides our decision-making and allows us to navigate a life that is chaotic right from the get-go, this neurotypical world that we have to try to survive as neurodivergent people. We're very much accustomed to kind of navigating chaos anyway. And while we can be overwhelmed with abrupt change, and it can be really overwhelming for us at times to have to deal with an onslaught of abrupt change, it's not something that we necessarily are unequipped for in the long term. And this is something that is brought out within that main character as well, from the moment that he wakes up on an alien world to the very last bit of the book, which I won't spoil here for you now.
Well, I'm glad you made time for the show. I'm glad the book sales are going well, Terry. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you. And if I may, just one final point. I've got an upcoming book signing on the 25th in the Avalon Mall at Kohl's from 2 p.m. to I believe 3:30. So if anyone would like to snag a copy of my book or maybe get a copy signed, that's the place to be.
Sounds about right, Terry. Thanks for doing this. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. You're welcome. Bye-bye. Terry Bursey, author, Newfoundland-based sci-fi novel. Let's go to line number 4. Sarah, you're on the air.
Hi, how are you?
Doing okay. How you doing?
Good. I just wanted to, spread the word about a speed dating event that's happening here in St. John's.
Let's hear about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we've been hosting these since February. Different age group. It's a typical 5-minute speed dating event that you would kind of see in like TV shows and movies, but it's quick 5-minute speed dates, and we've been hosting them at a few different locations. We have no trouble getting age groups under 40. We have enough men and women for those events to go ahead, but for the older age groups, we are looking for more men to participate. I have a lot of women interested, and always have women asking if they can buy tickets, but oftentimes the women's tickets are sold out. So trying to spread the word that we are looking for more men to participate in these events. And we actually have an event tomorrow night for ages 50 to 60 at the Elks Club. So you have to buy tickets online, but you can find all the information on Facebook or Instagram or eventbrite.ca if you just search Speed Dating NL.
So I'm familiar with speed dating from television. So exactly how does your structured speed dating work?
Yeah, so everyone gets a form to fill out, and I guide everyone through, so there's no preparation needed or anything like that. We also have question cards on the table, so if you are a little bit nervous and need a conversation starter, that is a great way to kind of start the conversation. So no preparation needed. You just show up, you get a form, you write down the names of everyone that you've met, and then you write yes or no if you want to match. If 2 people say yes to each other, then I get them in contact the next day.
So for folks out there, because, the new wave of meeting people is swipe right, swipe left. I don't even know which is which, to be honest with you. But, in the world of first impressions, for folks who are nervous about it, because most people are, even just public speaking or meeting someone for the first time and the first impression you leave might keep people away from your event. So what do you say to ease their worried minds?
Yeah, you can always bring a friend, another single friend, and that definitely helps us have equal numbers for events. But it really is a quick 5 minutes, so you're just kind of getting the baseline for who someone is to see if there's an attraction or an interest. And it's just quick conversations and a really low-pressure environment. People often get a drink and hang out before and after, and so it's really not stressful. It's a pretty comfortable environment.
Is there any music?
Yeah. Yep. We have music on in the background, and like I said, I guide everyone through. So, there's really not much preparation or anything needed once you're there. I guide everyone through.
Yeah, and I only asked that kind of tongue in cheek out of just because the traditional way was you meet someone and maybe there was a couple of drinks and a twirl around the dance floor. That was sort of part and parcel with meeting someone and the initial interaction. So at the end of it, so do I have for what is in essence a scorecard or some random thoughts? I submit them to you, and then we, our coordinates are shared, or how does that end product look like?
Yeah, so if 2 people say yes to each other, then I send them an email the next day and give their contact information. So they kind of take it from there, but they're put in contact if they both want to be.
Do you have any success stories like long-term romance that stem from some speed dating?
Well, we only started in February, but yeah, I've heard of some relationships coming out of it and multiple dates and whatnot. And even if there isn't a romantic connection, a lot of people have made friends from this, people who have just moved to town or may not have a large circle of friends. Like, it's a great way to just meet people that way. So, and even good practice for dating. If you're not someone who's out to bars all the time, or you're not on the apps, then you might not be as comfortable. So it's a good way to even just practice socializing and networking.
Yeah, first impression stuff is tricky business. It really is, and it goes a long way. It's human nature, We shouldn't, but we do judge books by its cover. And, the physical attraction might not be there, but who knows? That might be the most fascinating person you've ever met outside of 5 minutes or whatever it is between when the bell rings and you sit down. Do people have to register, Sarah? What do they need to do?
Yes, so you do have to buy a ticket. So it's eventbrite.ca. You can search Speed Dating NL, and any upcoming events will be there. You can also search Speed Dating NL on Facebook and Instagram. So you can find all the information there. We also have more events coming up in November. So we do all different age groups, different locations and whatnot.
Sounds
but
good.
The one tomorrow is ages 50 to 60.
50 to 60. People are looking for love at every age. Appreciate the time, Sarah. Thanks for doing it, and have fun.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bit of speed dating to break it up. Nothing wrong with it. All right, let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to St. John City Councillor Tom Davis on line number 5. Tom, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Good morning to you.
So we had a whole bunch of new councillors sworn in yesterday, so it's going to be hopefully a lot of exciting things coming out of City Hall, but we'll see how those poor young, I looked at them and thinking there's so much after a year and a half, there's still so much I'm learning every day, so I watching them absorb it next week, it should be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, turnover is always helpful in the city council chambers. There is a pretty steep learning curve, not only for the issues, but even just procedural things, which are important. It might feel like the boring part of being a councillor or a MHA or what have you, but understanding procedure to maximize time, to be efficient, is part of it.
Absolutely. I want to double down. I think last week I probably wasn't clear enough on the water situation. Donnie Earl, who's newly elected, he grew up on the shores of Babel's Big Pond, actually, like across, like right next to it, when it wasn't as flooded. And he's never seen it this low. And he said there's a road there that that hasn't been since he was a kid that he hadn't seen, that you can see. So the water levels are extremely low, and we still do not have any significant rain in the forecast. So we're really asking residents to conserve. I know last week I was talking about watering of lawns, which I was amazed to see, but I mean, I'm hoping people have gotten that message. But I just want to be very clear that although, fortunately we've had water conservation in the city for 4 years, but we need to even conserve even more, and I know that that's something we need to just spread the word, amongst your residents, neighbors, friends, and family.
A pond where I go, just outside the city, and I've been going around the shores of that pond since I was a child. I have never, ever, ever seen the water as low as I have this past week. Unbelievable. So it's real.
Yeah, and the thing is, that's a pond that's just naturally low. You can imagine when you're taking out
a reservoir,
millions of liters of water every day, and of course not just for the city of St. John's. Babel's Big Pond in particular, it services CBS and Paradise and Mount Pearl and part of St. John's. But we know Windsor Lake and up on the hill are also low as well. So again, this message needs to be, because we're going into once everything freezes up, then there's no extra water unless you get melting, which we do, of course. But again, we do need to conserve, because unless we can get some major rain, we're worried. We have significant worries going forward. So I just want to send that message. I mean, it's not an emergency right now. We don't want to get to that point, but just ask everybody to do their part.
Okay.
So I want to take off the council hat firmly off, and I know that people are MOU'd to death. But first of all, I listened very intently to the leaders, both John Hogan's concession speech as well as Tony Wakeham's acceptance speech, and I don't think it should be downplayed how much of a factor the MOU may have been in whether or not there was a majority or a minority. I mean, there was 3 seats, there are less than 100 seats in the difference. And I know a number of people who would normally have voted Liberal, who, because of the MOU and I guess the confusion, or maybe even the lack of confusion, probably from a lot of our points of view on the position. So I hope that Tony Wakeham, 2 things, and I realize it's way easier to govern from the sidelines than it is when you get it, but I feel like there will be a very, very quick meeting both with Treasury as well as with Newfoundland Hydro, and I think it'll be pretty obvious to the Premier elect that if he slows down the MOU, given the reality of the Liberal Party Premier Legault's government in Quebec, that it just won't get signed. So that combination of desperation, financial desperation, which the way we've been governing ourselves for the last 20 years, combined with the temptation of this money, is going to be a difficult thing. So, I'm hoping he takes the counsel of a lot of the experts that have been calling your show and sits down and gets a really good briefing of the Michael Wilsons and the Gabe Gregorys and the Dave Vardys and these people, and really formulates, a mature and long-term thinking response, while also trying to balance the fiscal realities of the province. After promising a chicken in every pot, the reality needs to hit the road. And I know I did hear him when he said that he's going to worry about the budgets of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians before he worries about the budgets of the province. And I'll argue they're linked, directly linked, and we need leadership on how to manage our budgets at home just as much as hopefully we're going to start talking about how we might manage our budgets here for the province.
Yeah, the two can coexist, but promises of, and this goes for everybody running this past the election, running on additional spending promises while also talking about cutting taxes. It's the math just doesn't add up. It does. Look, I get tax relief being an easy sell because people would like to have more money in their pocket. Who doesn't? It's pretty much human nature. So if you talk about doing away with the carbon tax, even if it means some people are worse off than before, even if you talk about the sugar tax, which I don't know how big an impact it was on people's pocketbook, but when you say taxes going away, a lot of voters will go, good.
Yeah, but again, I think that we've suffered from a dearth of leaders who don't just tell it like it is. That there's no free lunch, and there's effort that needs to go into having a successful household, business, and government, and there's sacrifice and there's long-term investment, and we need the leaders to start talking about that. And I'm hoping that when they get together, because it's a diverse group of conservatives, and when they get together and they put their heads forward, I hope we can chart a course forward. But I just want to leave two things in the minds of the people who are looking at the Upper Churchill, because I did do a little bit more analysis, and one of the things to look at is just return on investment on an asset. And so when we look at the existing Upper Churchill project, if you can value it somewhere between $61.4 billion and $100 billion, and that's just based on, say, Site C, which is completed fairly recently at $14.5 million per megawatt times the 5428 of the existing, and that's $78.7 billion. But so somewhere in 61.4, and I've heard Michael Wilson say between 80 and 100 billion. But just taking those numbers at 61.4 billion and at 8.5%, which is the way they want to value Gull, is they want to basically say this is what Quebec wants to do / John Hogan, previous government, is they wanted to value just on a return on investment of initial investment to construct something. So if you just took the existing Upper Churchill and said you wanted 8.5% return on 61.4 billion, that'd be 5.2 billion per year return on investment, and our share would be 3.3 billion per year starting right away. And at 80 billion, that number jumps up to 6.8 billion, our share being 4.4 billion. So that's one measurement of what we should get from an existing built structure if someone had to build it fresh. Another analysis, which I did, was based on oil. So the Upper Churchill, if you had to produce that much electricity burning oil, it'd be about 189,000 barrels per day. And the revenue from that, and that's at 80% capacity. At 100% capacity, it'd be 237,000 barrels per day. But anyway, that's $6.78 billion a year in revenue. So anyway you look at it, somewhere around $6 to $8 billion a year is what that asset is worth. And that's with no profit really, other than just return on the initial investment. So when we're looking at negotiating, people need to look at, Seamus came on right after me last week and said it's a good deal. And, I respect Seamus. However, there's a better deal. And it's going to take not desperate people, and it's going to take leadership that is willing to act like a Mark Carney, act like someone who is a deal maker, someone who's not afraid to walk away from the table. And I hope that the newly elected government is going to be that group of people, but we'll see, because we got to remind everybody over $50 billion or close to $50 billion in real liabilities that our province carries around, and an operating deficit of over $2 billion a year. We got what a great group of people with lots of assets. We just got to try and start thinking long term and acting long term. Some of the strategy behind negotiating, regardless of what we're talking about, a lot of that has to do with your dance partner as well. If you're trying to bring predictability or stability or long-term vision to a negotiation, if the other side is not that, then you're just going in there with some cockeyed optimism, which is likely to fail. So I'll just put that out there, because negotiating a trade deal with the Americans is different than negotiating a hydro deal with Hydro-Quebec. It's different than negotiating a critical minerals deal with, name a company that does mining in the country's north. Tom, anything else quick before I've got to get to the news? No, listen, I appreciate you. I want to echo what Gabe Gregory came on and said earlier. I mean, Open Line proved that Newfoundlanders and Labradorians can get together, have difficult conversations, and actually even change the course of an election. And I really think that a lot of credit goes to you and David and Open Line Show. So thank you for everything you do every day. Appreciate the time. Thanks, Tom. Okay, take care. You too. Bye-bye. All right, Tom Davis is the Ward 4 councillor here in town. All right, let's get to the news break. And, of course, that friendly reminder, you've heard several conversations about the MOU, and it's a big issue. And you've heard some reflection on the election proper. But just that reminder that whatever you want to talk about is good enough for me. So let's do that right after this. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go line number 2. Good morning, Avalon. You're on the air.
Yes, good morning. How are you this morning?
I'm great today. How are you doing?
Not so bad. I had some questions I caught last week because I wanted to get the questions in before the election, but I think they're still relevant. And the questions are, how much money is Newfoundland going to get, Newfoundland and Newfoundland Hydro, from Quebec Hydro and Quebec between now and 2031 under the old MOU and under the new MOU, and from 2032 to 2041, the same thing. Are we going to get this money? The other question I had is whether this deal that they're talking about, is going to have a chance to be ratified. But Tony Wakeham has already declared he's going to have a referendum on this, so that answers my question on that.
And a binding referendum at that, which is really something else. So,
I think it could, because Newfoundland has been blaming Quebec for 50 years or so now. The people are the ones who should decide, what happens, because we've got a lot tied up in this. Now, if you go back through, I think Brian Tobin Quebec Hydro walked away from a deal with Brian Tobin after they got what they wanted. They've done the same thing with Roger Grimes. So is there a full-on commitment in this negotiations that are taking place now that the Upper Churchill will be developed, or Lower Churchill will be developed? Or is it just they're saying that they're going to do it? Is there guarantees in there that this is going to get done?
No.
Are there guarantees in there that we're going to get, if the power rates are tied, and I would assume that they're tied to whatever the current rates are in the industry, then there would be escalation clauses or de-escalation clauses if the price goes down. That's my concerns about this.
Okay, so there's a bunch of questions there. So Gall, the authority to make a decision on proceeding or not at Gall is solely the responsibility of Hydro-Quebec. And there's a bunch of equity breakdown conversations. There are a new corporation to be set up. They would, and here's what the MOU says, they would pay our equity stake to the tune of $3.5 billion. If they don't proceed with Gall, there's a quote-unquote penalty that includes $1.5 billion coming our way. But my initial thoughts on Gall is, there's no way Quebec is interested in reopening the Upper Churchill unless Gull was part of it. There's no real reason to believe they won't develop Gull Island. As far as I can tell, they need the power, and the expansion of the Upper is not going to satisfy their power needs. So I can't consider, pardon me, that's not the right word. I can't understand a scenario where they don't proceed at Gull. None of that makes any sense to me. That's why they came.
But they came to Brian Tobin and they came to Roger Grimes and they walked away. So why did they walk away at that time?
Well, that got shot down politically here in the province.
I don't think so.
Well, it did.
I think the province wanted more than they were prepared to give.
Well, Grimes had a deal like that was, until it made its way to final pen to paper and definitive agreement, that plan was agreed upon on both sides, and that just went by the wayside. Danny Williams shelved it.
No, I'm talking about back to Roger Grimes and Brian Tobin. That was long before Danny Williams.
I just said Roger Grimes.
Yeah, but went back to Brian Tobin also.
Yeah, that was a completely different kettle of fish, the Tobin memorandum of understanding, which never even made it that far.
Are there guarantees put in there that they can't walk away, you know?
That who can't walk away?
That Quebec can't walk away.
Well, there's no contract yet, so anybody can walk away at this stage.
I know that, but in this new memorandum of understanding, is our government prepared to put in there that Quebec cannot walk away? That's one of my major concerns.
Well, I mean, I don't know. What would be the worry regarding Quebec walking away? I think most people in the province have a worry about our ability to walk away if things change dramatically, of which there are two noted off-ramps in the MOU, 2051, 2061, but that's a long way down the road.
Yeah, but when we done this in 1969, we're long ways down the road from that, and we're getting what, 0.02 cents per kilowatt hour now or something?
0.2, yeah.
You know, and Quebec is basically their people were paying. I'm not sure what it is now, somewhere around 13 cents a kilowatt hour, and Quebec is paying 5.8. That don't sound like a real good arrangement to me, and the power's coming from Newfoundland.
On the island, we're paying 14.237 cents for generation and delivery. Then there's fees associated with that, so we pay over 15 cents. The Labrador unconnected link is about 3.14 cents. Quebec, on the annualized average, pays about 8 cents.
Okay, so we're still a long ways apart, right?
Right, but I don't know how we could deal with that. That would end up being a political decision. If this ever happened and monies began to flow, politicians of the day would have to decide where that money goes. So, I mean, Hydro-Quebec is not going to subsidize our rates. I mean, we can all be honest with that. So if a politician, let's just say on the average, which is not every single year between now and 41, if the money coming in the door, if it was up to me, it would be spent on the debt and control my rates. The end, not anything else.
Well, that's where it would be with me, too.
Yep.
You know, pay down the debt, secure some of our rates, but I don't know because they're not telling us anything. Right?
Anything in particular that they're not telling us? Or you think that they're not telling us, or something that's being inaccurately portrayed?
Well, I'll go back to this independent, or not go back, but I'll bring up this independent review committee. One person already walked away from that. We don't know why he walked away, whether he wasn't happy or whether he had something else in his mind or whatever. His resignation letter should have been out there so that we could see why he walked away. You know, he might be displeased with the state of negotiations right now. I don't know.
Well, we kind of do know. In general terms, the letter that was released with all the redactions is a problem. But even for Tony Wakeham, when people have asked me to present this to Mr. Wakeham, would he commit to releasing Mike Wilson's resignation letter in full? And I have no idea how Mr. Wakeham would answer that. But the starting point there would be to tear up the non-disclosure agreement, because whatever is redacted is likely covered with the NDA, and even Mr. Wilson himself acknowledges that point. So Tony Wakeham would have to shred the NDA to then release it. And then, look, I'd like as much information as humanly possible. But inside of that, are there some things that we really don't want Hydro-Quebec to see as well? So it's a complicated question. I'd like to see more information. Mr. Wilson has done a lot of work after the fact that he resigned from the panel to do further analysis and break down different schedules, which he's been happy enough with me to send these things along. But yeah, I mean, the NDA would have to be considered for that letter to be released. I think that's just the legalities of it all.
Yeah, probably, and you might be right. I don't know the legalities of it either. I'm a bit concerned about the three people on this independent committee. I don't know their biases. I think that should be a little bit more public. Who these people are, what their expertise is. Because, I mean, we need someone, and Wakeham is committed to doing this. We need an independent review of this, someone who's got no axe in the grind, nothing, to make sure that Newfoundland gets the best possible deal for the next 50, 60 years. Yeah. And that's what I'm after.
I'm after the same thing. I live here. I want to live here long term. I want my kids to be able to make a life here, and some of that has a lot to do with this deal and a variety of other things, because it can't be just one thing. But this is important. No argument coming from me whatsoever. Anything else you'd like to say this morning?
I'm not against the deal with Quebec. I think Newfoundland got the deal with Quebec. I don't think there's any other way for us to do it. We just got to get a good deal with Quebec.
Yeah, and it's always going to have to be mutually beneficial or a guarantee. If we try to hoodwink Quebec, that's not going to happen. They're the biggest bullies on the block.
And the last one wasn't mutually beneficial.
It was not, and they acknowledge it finally. But that's cold comfort. You can't eat that.
No. Agree.
Appreciate the time. Thanks for calling.
No problem.
Okay, buddy. All the best. Bye-bye. Before we get to the break, let's go to line number 1. Good morning, Greta. You're on the air.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Another beautiful day here.
Glad to hear it. Where's here? Where are you?
Musgrave Harbor.
Lovely.
It is very beautiful here. We're making positive out of the negative.
What would you like to tell us about what's going on in Musgrave Harbor?
Well, we've been exploring and walking the beach every morning and witnessing some really, really, really strong winds a few days ago. And but we had wool on and we managed. And we've gone to a few different care facilities and visited some of the elderly people there and learning about times here. And the elderly have so much wisdom, so it's really fun to visit them. And then we took a drive to Gander and went to a museum there, a couple of museums, and went to the airport, one museum and to the airport. And we ran into, on our walk there, we ran into an air traffic controller who was working at the time of 911. So that was so interesting, and we're learning more about that as time goes on. We're just so thankful for all the kindness. I don't know, I have no words to describe how thankful we are.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying a positive experience here in this neck of the woods. Generally speaking, we're pretty kind and generous and open-armed with visitors to the province, and I'm glad that's how it's going for you.
Oh, yes. I don't think we've met a rude person yet. Everybody is so friendly and happy to visit and tell us their story.
And Greta, where are you visiting? Sorry, go ahead.
We're from the States. We're from Minnesota.
Okay.
It just seems wherever we've gone on walks in the woods, like Carmenville, and there's people there and are so friendly and nice. It's just been very enjoyable to meet all these kind people.
Oh, I mean, there's lots of good people around. Is one of the mottos of Minnesota the land of 10,000 lakes?
Right. Yes, we have many, many, many lakes.
Yeah, lots of little small bodies of water. And this is sort of a question apropos of nothing, but it's one of the American hotbeds of ice hockey. Are you guys hockey fans?
Oh, yes.
Oh, good.
Yep. Minnesota Wild, and then growing up, my brothers played in town hockey before they had indoor ice, and finally our small town got a ice arena. But, yeah, it's really fun to watch the playoffs, and the little guys learn to play, starting at a young age. And we made ice rinks in our backyard, raising our little kids. As always, like, go flood the ice no matter how cold it is.
Absolutely. We did a lot of skating on the pond and the bogs as kids as well. Greta, I'm glad you're enjoying your experience in Musgrave Harbor. How long are you staying before you return to Minnesota?
Oh, we're waiting for our transmission to arrive in St. John's. It's getting rebuilt right now. So we're hoping to get back as soon as we can. We have brand new granddaughter that was born yesterday. So, anyhow, we're just trying to make lemonade out of lemons.
Well, good for you. How many grandchildren do you have? Is that your first, or is it many?
No, you better sit down first.
Okay, I'm sitting.
That's our 24th grandchild.
What? 24?
Yes, from my husband. They've been only married to him.
That's amazing. And so the newest granddaughter, what's her name?
The youngest one?
Yeah.
Rena Greta.
Rena Greta. Beautiful. And so do you have any great-grandchildren?
No, not yet. Thank goodness.
Won't be long.
Our oldest is 17, Milan.
Wonderful. Really pleased to meet you this morning, Greta. Thanks for doing it. Fingers crossed you get your transmission back soon and get home to Minnesota safely.
Yes. Big shout out to Tom and Liz and Joey, and we couldn't have done it without them. It's really been a blessing.
Really pleased to hear it, Greta. Thanks for making time for the show.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, there you go, 24 grandkids. I'd like to have some grandkids one of these days. Oh, and getting the transmission worked on. I should have asked, is Rex Gowdy doing the work? Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 4. Say good morning to yet another author. This time is Michael Boyle. Good morning, Michael. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Great show. I know you're tied up with politics and so forth. I have a new memoir called On New Turf, and it's doing quite well. And it details. I'll give you the one sentence summary. As a young lad at 23, I left the mosslands of County Derry, Ireland, to come and seek my fortune on Island Harbour, Fogo Island. What happened to me? Well, that's the story. And it's a story not about me. It's a story about what it was like in Newfoundland in the 60s, late 60s and 70s. And it's a vast difference than what it is today. You'd agree with that?
100%. And I'm enjoying the read. I actually have a copy that you were thankful enough to send along to me. I'm grateful that you sent it along. So just because I just mentioned hockey with Greta from Minnesota, I know you started on Fogo Island, spent time up the shore, but you also spent time at Gander where a CFA learned to skate.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, that's an interesting chapter, isn't it?
It is.
I didn't get any call-ups to play with the pros. I did play a game, an exhibition game up the Southern Shore with Loyola Hearn and Bernard Kavanagh. I think that was a fun event. It was on a line there. And talking about the Southern Shore, you probably noticed the cover of the book is very interesting in the sense that. I asked Jerry Squires when I was up the shore to come into my classroom at Baltimore High and talk about art, and Jerry didn't follow my instructions. I don't know if you got to that part yet. Have you? No?
No, not quite.
Jerry told me to sit down and stay at my desk and told the kids to copy down around, and after about 25 minutes, Jerry came up with a painting which is the cover of the book. And talking about the book, on the back of the book, I've got a couple of real heavyweights who've really endorsed the book. A person like Lyndon McIntyre, and I've also got a very famous Irish writer, Bernie McGill. But the book itself, I think, speaks for itself. I don't know if you've looked at the Gander experiences, and I went to Fogo, and the best thing to say is things didn't quite work out without giving a spoiler alert. I think you'd agree with that.
I absolutely will agree with that. It's painstakingly clear that it didn't work out as intended. And for folks who maybe didn't understand who Lyndon McIntyre is, former Giller Prize winner, so notable to say the very least. And also a little shout out from up the shore, if I remember correctly, Loyola Hearn, who was a long-time member of Parliament, but also the ambassador to Ireland at one point.
Yes, Loyola was very supportive, and the book is selling well up the shore, and also selling in Ireland. It's incredible that type of thing. But it hasn't been really known in St. John's until this is sort of the first live interview talking about the book, which is available in all the local good bookstores, and a place downtown called Elaine's Tickle Trunk and Legends. Those are fantastic places downtown. as well as the malls itself. It's an interesting read, and it's not about me. It's not a book about achievements. There's no there's no gold medals and awards. But I think the important thing, a lot of people in this province can relate to it, because it's a journey that they've experienced themselves. If they came from a small outport and had to come to university or had to go to study in the mainland, I think they can see that. They can see the kind of toughness it was. And the resilience in it. I think you probably saw that yourself.
I did indeed, Michael. I also appreciate the large font as my eyes grow old and weary, so I'll add that to the mix as well. I'm going to continue reading it, Michael. I'm going to sneak out one more call, but good luck with continued success with On New Turf, a memoir.
Okay, thank you very much, Paddy. Take care.
All the best, Michael.
Okay.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Final word goes to line number 2, Father Nelson Bourne with Good Shepherd Parish in St. Mary's. Good morning, Father Bourne. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How are you?
Great today. Thanks. How about yourself?
I am feeling fantastic, Paddy, because today I am officially joining the Half Century Club, celebrating my 50th birthday.
Happy birthday to you. 50, great number. And before we run out of time, Father, I want to make sure you get a chance to promote the upcoming event. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so I'm a priest assigned to Good Shepherd Parish in St. Mary's Bay, which I serve the small communities from Peters River down to North Harbor. It's a long drive, though, but it is a fulfilling work for spiritual and pastoral care of my parishioners. Now, Paddy, I am reaching out to invite all friends and parishioners, both near and far, as well as anyone connected to Good Shepherd Parish in St. Mary's Bay, to support our fundraiser concert for the parish. The In El Pinoy Music Ministry, the Filipinos from St. John's, will perform for free, along with 3 local talents, Peter McEvoy, Shannon Power, and Judy Brazil. So the concert will be held on this Saturday, October 18th at 7 p.m. at Our Lady of Assumption Church in St. Mary's. And the admission is $20, Paddy. Hopefully everyone will be able to support this noble cause.
I hope it's a roaring success, Father Bourne, and thank you for making time for the program, and happy birthday. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Paddy, for accommodating my request. God bless you.
The very same to you, Father. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Father Nelson Bourne, Good Shepherd's Parish out in St. Mary's. All right, good show today. Big thanks to all hands. We will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.